Welcome, everybody, to episode number 2 of the Coach's Corner. I am Bobby Hobbs, and I am here with my friend, Paul Brown. How's it going, Paul Brown?
DJ B Hob, dude, I love our intro music. I love
Yeah,
I love the fact that you made that yourself in the studio as you're crushing other beats and rhymes, and you're like, you know
y-
what, I'll just do
exactly.
something.
I am
I like it.
using the finest tools that I have at my disposal, which are the free options on my Canvas
You know what? It fits
prescription
perfectly into what
subscription.
we're talking about. You didn't like what we had, so you just changed it.
Yeah, if I don't have something, I'm going to play with it, and I am going to change it. That is for sure. So today's the second episode. So the first time we kind of talked about what this show is going to be about, but one of the things that I forgot, and people that are watching the first one probably are wondering, why are we calling this the Coach's Corner, which I didn't think we explained in the first one. And I was like, it's probably a good
Hmm.
idea that we talk about that a little bit. And first of all, I wanted to talk about, me being newer to the Ascent team. You guys have been at it for about 5 years. I've only been with the team about 6 months now. And when I started, that was one of the things that was interesting about when I started was we called ourselves coaches. Okay. And we
Hmm.
have, with our online academy, we have our coach calls. So considering that's kind of your area of the business more than it is Adam's, give me why you thought that way, because I like it. I mean, it was my personal thing. I liked that way, that thought process behind it. But give the people why you liked that for us as a company, and then we'll talk about why we called it this for the
You
show.
know, that really just kind of came from just trying to break down some of it's just another kind of stigma within within our business, right? People, when somebody comes in that is there to impart knowledge and help you, people always go, oh, they're the trainer or they're the vendor. Like Adam and I, when we first started doing this, and we were in his, I'm going to tell you how uncool we were, but when we were driving around in his Toyota Camry hybrid, because that was our road warrior car, because we were new and broke in this business and needed 50 miles of the gallon. But we would walk in and people would call us vendors. And I'd be like, man, I get almost like personally offended. Vendor is the guy that comes in and does your dent and ding work, that does your bumper paint, that maybe puts the 3M on your car. You know, we're not vendors. And I'm like, so how do we change that? And I was the same way in my store. We called when our agency would come in, you know, we'd say, hey, they're going to come in and do some training. And we looked at it, and that's exactly what the industry was full of. And it's what it's
Right.
still full of today, much to our chagrin. It's full of trainers. And what trainers are they are people sometimes that have no real world experience, right? They've never sat in the seat. They really don't understand what you go through. And there's somebody that's been plucked out of maybe college, or right out of college, or out of some other industry, and they get these authorities that say, okay, here's what you're gonna do.
Right.
You're gonna go out and help people and change the world. You're gonna learn these word tracks. And you know, Bobby, that I also hate that word, right?
Which
We just
totally
haven't
with.
come up with a better one, which, by the way, for all my people out there watching this or listening to this, help us find a better term for word tracks. I like to call them conversations, but still, word tracks is still kind of the vernacular we use. And so what they would do is they'd say, hey, you're going to learn these word tracks, and then you're going to go out and teach them to finance managers, and they're going to say these things, and it's going to have this dramatic effect on them, and they're going to sell more products, and customers are going to be happier. And there couldn't be anything further from the truth, right? We joke all the time, hey, 1990 called, they want their word tracks back, so we sent them all back because we got no use for them. So we started looking at it and going, well, why do we do that? Because I was at part of my first coach slash trainer was Ron Rehard. Ron Rehard is well known in the automotive industry. He does the
Absolutely.
same thing that we do, right? And before he was a coaching god per se, before he was like the official coach for NADA and all that kind of stuff, all the accolades that he has, which are well deserved, Ron was a one-man band that was just starting his company, and our dealer group in St. Louis happened to hire him. And he would come in and we would do these same things. We would sit down and we would do these word tracks, and he would say, okay, you say this, then the customer will say this, then you say this, then they're going to buy. And then after we'd been doing that for, a period of time, he started doing like live schools. So I went to his school. It was a 3-day school. And I went into that school and I was relatively new in F&I. And I go into the school and I sit through all this stuff and we're doing these role play exercises. And I came out with just such a fire in my belly because I'm like, I
Right.
remember Ron Rehard when I was
Feeling
leaving his course,
pumped.
hey, brother, I'm going to make you famous because I'm going to go take all this stuff that you just gave me and I'm going to run numbers nobody's ever seen before. I'm going to dominate this industry and I'm going to give you all the credit. Right. And I went out and I was so happy. And then I get into the store and customer says this, I say this, they say this, I say this, and they didn't buy. And I'm like, well, wait a second. That goes against the training that I've had. You're supposed to say yes at this point. But there was nothing, we weren't doing a good job then of finding out who the customer was, finding out what their buying motivations were. We knew nothing about sales psychology. And if we did, it was by accident, right? We just had feelings about
Yeah, there
customers.
was no adaptation at all.
Yeah. And so we started looking at that and I started thinking about coaching way, way back before I ever left retail, even before I had my store, because I thought, you know what, that's what coaches do. Right. And I looked at it as like sports analogies, right? Your trainer on a sports team is a person that tells you, take a weight and lift it exactly like this. Use this very strict form. Don't deviate from it. This is the most efficient way to do it. This is the most efficient way to swing a bat. This is the most efficient way to block somebody that's rushing the quarterback, right? They have very specific things that they want you to replicate exactly. That's what a trainer
Right.
does. But then you have coaches that go, hey, let me tell you a little bit about why we're doing the things that we're doing, the methodology behind it. And then a good coach looks at you and what your natural abilities are, and they tailor their coaching or training to
They
you.
adjust it. Right.
Yeah, to bring out the best that you have to offer. So when I started thinking about that, and when Adam and I really got into retail, we said that's who we need to be, right? We need to be, and we just kind of said, and there's a dear friend of mine, Sean Kelly, who's in a space similar to ours. He doesn't really do this, but he goes in and really helps dealerships find out what their people are all about. He finds out what they're happy with and their job not happy with. And he has a very successful bit. And that was kind of one of his things. He said, I'm coaching the car business. And I really kind of latched on that because it is about the things that we say. And it is about knowing certain, your mouth hole needs to make certain sounds, right? I mean, so there's word tracks that we kind of got to know, but we need to get away from that because the word track is an idea of a philosophy that we have to understand and adopt so that we can then help customers. And that's kind of where that whole thing came about. And the more that we do it, the more excited I get about it because it's like, this is what it's all about, right? This is about, and it also feels more genuine to a customer because we are more genuine as human beings, right? We're sitting down going, I understand you. I can have empathy with the position that you're in. I understand that you have things that you're concerned about. I understand that at this point you might be a little bit scared because we're getting ready to wrap up this transaction, right? And you think that I'm going to sprinkle some magic dust on your deal and make you pay a whole bunch extra money for nothing, right? So there's a lot of that. So if we understand that, then we can be better at putting customers at ease. And customers can feel a word track coming from a mile away. It
Yeah,
feels sleazy. It's
so
gross.
inauthentic and it doesn't feel right. It's
Yeah.
just it's terrible.
So
So
that's kind of how we decided, you know what, we're not going to train, we're going to coach, and we're going to have, there's going to be some very specific things when we coach that when you do this, like when you do your factory warranty presentation, you need to hit on these key things, these 7 or 8 things. You need to make sure that you get them out there, but how you get them out there is completely up to you, right? Use your own swag. I
right.
mean, like you go watch me talk to somebody, watch Adam talk to somebody,
Oh
watch
yeah,
you,
completely
watch
different.
Billy. We're all different. We all have our own swag. So it's about, coaching is about bringing out the best in an individual, not trying to make somebody be me or make somebody be you. It's about letting them kind of just really blossom with their own set of skills and utilizing that to make them just have. What we find is that when we do that, people just have more. I guess they feel better about their job. They have more, when they're more self-aware of themselves and they're looking to serve more than sell, they feel better about their job. And if they feel better about their job, they're more authentic. And if they're more authentic, customers are just going to realize that, okay, this person is presenting me with things that are designed to help me. but they're not trying to sell me a bunch of stuff, right? Which is, again, that's the sleazy
Yeah, you're
feeling.
creating that relationship. Well, a
Yeah.
couple of things. Couple of things. First of all, your friend that deals with people and what they like about and what they don't like about
Mhm.
their position. Let's tap into that maybe for that future episode I wanted to talk
Yeah.
about where where I really want to focus on how to maintain our employees, right? And you talked about that a little bit when we were talking about AI last time and how we need to get the best people. I'm going to just kind of go out on a limb and I'm probably going to speak for you and Adam and some other people that are in our space a little bit. A lot of the reason we all left, and I can tell you, me 100%, isn't because it was the money, right? Money isn't
Yeah.
why anybody left. You
Yeah.
left because it was not enjoyable anymore, you know?
Yeah.
And that is what is really got to be a focus for people out there. And I think there's some, don't get me wrong, I think there's some dealers and some dealer groups that do a great job with it. Okay. But I would say they are the minority, right?
Yes.
I would say the vast majority of the dealers out there are behind the times when it comes to taking care of employees that you pay well. You know, we're not talking about minimum wage employees. We're talking six-figure earners that don't get treated the way they need to be in order for you to maximize their potential and then make them not want to leave. And that's going to be so important as we go forward. So
Yeah.
let's tap into that for a future one. But the other thing, what I wanted to share with you is what I ended up thinking of coaching because I never really talked with you about it. This is the first time we've actually had this conversation, and you know, I kind of guessed at it, but you know, it seemed to actually line up with what you were thinking. So here's my thoughts on the coaching, and you can tell me whether this fits with you what you were thinking or not. But this is after doing it for 6 months. The things that I liked are first of all, we've all had trainers in, right? We've all had
Mhm.
vendors in. And I was the worst to deal with as far as a GM or a variable ops director when you came in. I didn't have time for anybody. And karma is a mother, and I'm dealing with that right now, dealing with trying to figure out come back. I'm getting what came back to me for doing the way I did to people for so long. But okay, a lot of it was the approach, right? You know, they
Yeah.
were hired guns. They came in, they told me this is the only way you can do business. And you look at them funny, and you're like, no, it's obviously not the only way you can do business because there's hundreds and thousands of dealerships out there that are successful in their own way that do things completely different, right? So
Yeah.
for me, one of the things I liked about it is a coach is part of the team, right?
Yeah.
And I always took that approach whenever I was in any business and when I'm in this business now, you know, with my accounts, excuse me, I can't talk right now. It's late. With my accounts, I look at them as if they're my own store, right? I want them to be as successful as I wanted my own store to be successful, you know. So I need to feel integrated in a way that I feel like I am part of their team and hopefully they do as well. You know, I can't speak for them, you know, but hopefully one day we get a couple of them on here that might tell you that they feel the same way. But that's how I feel about them at a minimum, right?
Yeah.
At a minimum, I am giving the effort as if this is my own store, which I appreciated, right? The
Yeah.
other side of it was a little bit, you talked about it there. It was the adaptation, right? For me, that's a big deal with it. With all of this stuff, I don't like anything that says this is the way we do it and we do it this way 100% of the time. Okay.
That's
That
the
doesn't
worst.
make sense to me. Like it just never did. You know, I'm a consistent person. I like to have processes. I like to do things very similar all the time. But I also need to be able to adapt to different personality types, different situations. And that's one of the things that I really liked. And that's what really reminded me of a coach per se. You know, it's that halftime adjustment, right? You know,
Yeah.
if you're getting your tail kicked in the first half, you aren't going to come back and do the same thing in the second half. Well,
Right.
especially if you don't, if you want to win, right? So, you know, that was kind of my thinking on it, you know, and that was what I really liked. And that's why I decided to call this show the Coach's Corner, because that's what we're going to try and provide for people is well, along with some entertainment, hopefully. You know, because this is not supposed to be a dry sit here and talk to you for 45 minutes thing. We want this to be something that you listen to when you're on your drive home. That's not going to sit there and bore you to death as you're driving home or driving in, but is also going to hopefully give you some tips that are going to help you and your store benefit, right? And what we want to do and what we really want this to do is we want to make sure that we're staying ahead of the times with it, right? You
Yeah.
know, we don't want to be that place that's doing the same plays since 1980. Okay. You
Yeah.
know, we want to be adjusting as things happen. So I really thought that that was a great thing for us as a group. You know, that's my own personal opinion. You know, I'm not just saying it because I work for the company. I don't toe anybody's line. If I don't feel something, I don't commit to it, right?
Yeah.
But I really do enjoy that. Like that's a big thing for me. So that was the first thing I wanted to talk about today is, you know, why did we call it the Coaches Corner? Well, we call ourselves coaches, and that's what we want to provide to you guys, right? So what we want to do next is each week we're going to probably cut these up into like a couple of segments, right? You know, we're going to probably talk a little bit about something that's in the news if there's anything topical, right? And then we'll probably have a theme for it. Well, we'll start out today with what's in the news. So I'm kind of a nerd. Okay. I'm just going to be honest with you guys here. A lot of the reasons we do this is because I enjoy doing it. Okay. I like just as much putting together all of the videos and all the digital assets and stuff because it's fun for me to do. Right. And one of the things that kind of is in my alley this week is there is the CES Consumer Electronics Show. Right now, for the most people in the car business, they might look at you and go, what is that? That's not NADA. You know, that's not SEMA. That's nothing that has anything to do with us. Right. Well, that's changed over the years. Right. So this is kind of the segue of the two things that I really enjoy. I like electronics. I like cars. Right.
Mhm.
And this is something that's been slowly building year over year to where there used to be almost no presence from manufacturers to a little bit to where now there's a lot. Right. There's a lot of presence of manufacturers out there. And what I wanted to talk actually is as I was looking who was in it is about one specific one to begin with, right? And that's Scout. Okay. For those of you that don't know what Scout is going to be a new EV company that is going to be under the Volkswagen banner. Okay. For those of you that are familiar with Polestar, okay, from the Volvo side, this is going to be a similar type of product in the way that they give them out to dealers or not in this case.
Yeah.
And how they are going to be managed, right? So it's a different concept that I can tell you my own opinion is I hate it. Like I strongly am against legacy manufacturers creating new brands to sidestep their dealer base and go direct to consumer. Okay.
Right.
I am just going to call it like it is. I don't care who sees this and how they feel about me afterwards. If somebody at Volkswagen doesn't like me, I'm cool with it. Okay. I think it's not a right thing to do to their dealers. I don't think it's the right thing to do to their consumers. Okay. Because as we talked about this a little bit before, is, you know, you talked about last week about you want to be able to bring a vehicle to somebody when it has a problem, right? And if it's anything like the Volvo one, I'm guessing they're going to have to bring it to a Volkswagen store. I'm guessing. I don't know. Okay. This isn't my knowledge.
Probably.
This is a pretty new product that I don't think is fully fleshed out yet, but it's like, how in depth is that Volkswagen store going to want to go into dealing with these customers that they have no relationship with, right? You know, one of the things that service departments do well is develop relationships with
Mhm.
customers, right? That is what, you know, what brings you that repeat business back, right? And when there's not that long-term hope of having another vehicle, I'm going to tell you personally, I'd have a hard time putting those people ahead of my customers that have bought the vehicle that I can sell them again. You know, I used to run a store where we were way above capacity. Okay. I had to schedule out about 2 weeks at any given point in time, and you had to do triage of what customers you were willing to accept into your service department. Right.
Yeah.
And I was just going to be honest with customers. Like, if you weren't my customer, I would help you out. I wasn't going to turn anybody away, but I definitely can't give you the spot ahead of the customers that have bought from us and have been doing with business with us forever. Right.
Yeah.
And I got to feel these are going to be the same way. You know, what's your thoughts on these direct to consumers, but with a company that already has a franchise in the market?
Yeah, that's a very slippery slope and kind of a scary thing to get involved with because here's like you hit on it earlier. Part of it is going to be what do they do with this tech when a customer comes in and they have a concern and the tech is seeing this vehicle for the first time,
Right.
right? What are they doing? I'm sure when these things come out, you're probably going to have to be some sort of
Oh,
certified,
absolutely.
so they're going to have to send technicians to it. And I bet dealers are going to be kind of like you said. They're going to go, well, I'm not going to take guys out of my shop that are making money for them to send them to get trained on a vehicle that we can't even sell. We can't even
Right.
participate in the profits in. We don't know anything about. It makes no sense. And I don't think it works. I mean, here, look, Ford tried to do that with the Lightning, right? They said Lightning was going to be direct
And
to
they had to go
consumer, and that
completely
lasted
backwards.
about 82 seconds. And they go, okay, we can't do this because dealers where they had their, their pitchforks and their torches and they were going after the manufacturer. I just don't think that they can do it. I think I know customers want a human interaction. They want to be able to talk to somebody when they buy the vehicle, right? Because, and that's the other thing is, same thing with the Lightning, right? You were going to do these, customers were going to be able to buy them, and then the dealer was doing at some level a courtesy delivery.
Right.
Well, how motivated are you to do that when you've made no money on that train? You haven't gotten an opportunity at the F&I. I mean, you've had no opportunities up to this point, and then you're supposed to jump in and just treat them like family. I just don't think it works that way. And I don't think customers want to work it that way. I think the manufacturers need to slow their roll a little bit, maybe survey their customers. And I bet that their customer base would say, well, I'd actually like to be able to buy it from the dealer, right? I'd actually like to. Where do you go test drive it? Where do you go ask questions? Where do you go see if you
Right.
fit in it? I mean, all of the things that customers do, even before they decide that they want that car, much less are going to try and purchase it and negotiate a deal and payments and all that kind of stuff. So everything happens so late in the process. It's not fair to the consumer. It just
No,
isn't. It's
no,
definitely
that's
not fair to the dealer, but it's not fair to the consumer because the consumer is getting shortchanged of the very best part of the process of buying a new car, which is going and seeing it and touching it and
yeah, it's
finding
the
out
fun
all the
stuff.
features and test
Yeah.
driving, right? That's the stuff they actually want to do. And we're going to take that away from them or have it at some other place where, I don't even know. And again, they don't have it flushed out, so they don't even know how they're going to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
But
That's
then,
this is just conjecture at this point, but
yeah, that begs the question of what is in doing this on this vehicle, what is that setting the stage for down the line? Right? That's what I'm always looking at, especially when it comes with manufacturers, because as a dealer, I understand. And any of our manufacturers that are listening to this, put your wooden ears on for about 90 seconds while I rant. Manufacturers are not our friends,
right.
right? They're not interested in our profitability. Yet at some level, they want us to be able to be a place where they can drop their vehicles off. So they have some interest in us being profitable. But if you order a bunch of vehicles and you can't get rid of them because the manufacturer isn't supporting them, they don't care.
Yeah,
They're
you
not
already
paying part
wrote
of
the
your
check. You're
floor
good.
plan. What the manufacturer cares about is that you buy vehicles from them. They don't really care what happens to the vehicle after you bought it. So with that at some level adversarial relationship, I don't know of a dealer principal that I could call right now or text right now and say, "Hey, how much do you love your manufacturer?" They'd be like, "Oh my God, they're a pain in the
Yeah,
ass."
there's only a couple that honestly, from a point of like where like I said before, like we had 16 brands. Okay. There's only a couple that I would say, hey, we had a great relationship with, or that relationship even mattered. Right.
Right.
Like, some of them, it's like you had a good relationship with them. Like, let's say Honda. Okay. Honda is a very nondescript brand. Right. You kind of just pay the Honda tax, you get the cars, you deliver them, and at the end of the day, as long as you don't do wrong, it's okay, right?
Right.
But there's no real relationship,
No.
right? It's I was okay with that. That's a fine one. Like I don't have any problem with that, And then you had some that were adversarial, like you do in this case, like you have with Volvo, and you now have with Volkswagen, and you have with
Stellantis.
Nissan and Stellantis.
Whew.
You know, it's a weird way to do business. Number one, okay. And if you didn't have these franchise laws that are pretty hard to get passed, I think they'd cut us out altogether. To be
Oh,
perfect,
for
like
sure.
that, right?
If they could, because all they would do is they would absorb the difference between that invoice and MSRP, and that would become their profit.
Right.
I mean, they would do it in a second if they thought they could get away with it. Not our friends.
Mhm. Well, and in the past, GM and Ford have tried to do direct to consumer. I mean, I'm talking past, right? And they failed miserably. They ended up having to close a lot of those stores, and that was in the late 80s, early 90s, and stuff like that. And it's like they showed that they don't have that knowledge. Like a lot of times, I'll talk with the manufacturer reps that are, that know their side of it well. Okay. And a
Yeah.
lot of times they'll be like, well, why don't you do this? And I'd be like, well, you obviously have never sold a car because that
Right.
makes zero sense. Right.
Yeah.
And it's like you take for granted that this is the manufacturer. They know what they're doing. Well, not always. Okay. There are some good people, there are some good reps.
Yeah.
That's not me taking a shot at everybody. Okay.
No.
That is me taking a shot at certain ones of them, okay, that come in and kind of like what you were talking about originally with what you were saying with the people that come in and get given word tracks. They might not even know what they're telling you. They're just told this is what you're supposed to do. You do this to sell more cars. Well, in the real world, that doesn't always make sense.
Yeah.
When we're talking about franchise laws, when you're talking about things like sales efficiency or sales expectancy or whatever you want to call it, right? It is a thing that can be very, very, very changeable based on what your demographics are, what your location are. These are things that are not consistent, and they can use them to really hold the dealer to a massive disadvantage to other brands if that brand has some reason to outperform in your area, right? But
Yeah.
from their standpoint, they're just like, well, Nissan sells 5% nationally. You should sell 5% nationally. Okay. But they don't take into effect if you've got a domestic company locally that, let's say, they've got a manufacturer nearby and they can give supplier pricing to, half their customers. Well, that throws
Yeah.
that off substantially. Right. And they use that to negatively impact you. And I would like to see that. The reason I say this, and like I said, it comes across kind of adversarial, but they're kind of adversarial with us, to be honest. But I would like to see better relationships with it. Okay. I can tell you from my position, a lot of the best things I did in my position wasn't because of me. It was because I developed good relationships with the manufacturers that were willing to work with me. Right. And when you maximize those, you got good results out of it, and you got things that others wouldn't, And what I would say is to the manufacturers out there that don't do that is take a look at the companies that do work well with the dealers. And I would say really those are Toyota and Subaru. Do you know of any other ones that you would say that really go above and beyond that you've heard of or you've worked with?
No, not that anybody's raving about. And to kind of backtrack a little bit, because I didn't want to feel like anybody feels like I'm bashing on the manufacturers. When I'm talking about the manufacturer and they don't care, it's not the grassroots people. Like the grassroots people, like my rep, people that I could physically get on the phone as a dealer, those people were great. I'm talking
we're
about the
talking
people that are sitting in boardrooms
Yeah.
that are actually making the decisions.
C-suite guys.
So
and
just
girls.
just to differentiate
Yeah.
that there.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, I
definitely
don't
not
know of
take-
anybody that's really singing their praises. But even Toyota, I mean, Toyota has some things where, they leverage things with dealers,
for sure.
to get certain results. And I guess if I was the president of Toyota, I probably would do the same thing. I'm not saying that, and they're obviously a very successful company or one of our partners, so they're doing the right things. But they're all doing what they think is best for the brand. But ultimately, I feel like they don't. And even in talks with some of our folks at the manufacturers that we talk to regularly, they ask us kind of what's going on with customers and what are customers looking for, because they don't quite understand the customer. I mean, you can survey customers till you're blue in the face, and maybe you'll get good answers, maybe you won't get good answers, and maybe people will be honest, maybe they won't be. And but if you don't really understand grassroots what's going on in the store, it's really hard to make these just sweeping changes to the industry. Because if you don't understand the customer, like the customer that's buying your vehicle, that's the only reason that you have a dealer, right? You have a dealer so that they can develop a relationship with the people, because the manufacturer doesn't have the ability or the time, honestly, to do
Right.
that. So why do you alienate the people that are there to really be your brand ambassador? Doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of how we'll tie it up here. I don't mean to take this as a negative approach if that's what I'm coming across as, but what I would like to see is them build on that to what your point is, right?
Yeah.
Is in order to get a better product to your customer, okay? In order to have better relationships with your dealers, you need to engage with your dealers to find out what is needed from the customers in order to provide that, right? And work with them, right? These dealers want to deliver cars. They want to provide great experiences for their customers. They just need help, right?
Mhm.
They don't need to be working against the dealer or the manufacturer. They need to be working with the manufacturer. So that's like one
Absolutely.
thing I would really like to see change over the next 5 or so years, right? That's what I would like to see because I think that this has taken a pretty hard turn to the negative side over the last 5 to 10 years, wouldn't you say, with the
Yeah.
manufacturer relations with dealers? So that's what we've got for that. The next portion we're going to go over, like I said, I'm going to kind of share with you guys my journey as we go along through this. And kind of like I said, I'm going to use this as my own little like personal notebook to talk about some things and really talk through things for myself as much as to share with everybody else. And hopefully it helps people out. And maybe I get even some opinions from people on things that I could do better. And I'm always willing to take those. You know, we were talking about that actually a little bit today on our coach call, right? And this is actually where I'm going to go with this. And this is where I came up with the idea for today's podcast was we always have this like alpha male approach to car sales, right? Or at least we used to. Okay. And, I came up through it, hey, everybody's got a beat on their chest. I'm better than everybody. I'm the best salesperson ever. That's what you had to do to get ahead. Okay. And while that may have been positive and, that may have gotten us to the positions that we were, and I was a bulldog to get to any next spot. Right. But a lot of times you failed to learn some things along the way, right? Because everybody has that I know attitude, right?
Mhm.
In a car dealership, you don't frequently have people tell you they don't know the answer to it, right?
Right.
I can tell you it's not something that's common. Okay. One thing I would like to see is I'd like people to be willing to be vulnerable, right? That's going to be my personal push for automotive in 2025 is to have people feel comfortable being vulnerable about what you don't know. Okay. I could fill a Mack truck with what I don't know. Okay.
Yeah.
And I could fill a tiny little cup with things I do. Right. That they are two massively different things. And I always want to know. Okay. If I don't know, I'm fine with it. If you don't know, I'm fine with it. Just tell me. Right. We get a lot of this is the way we always done things, right, Paul? That's always been
Mhm.
like, that's always the thing in dealerships. Oh, this is the way we've always done it. Okay. Has anybody ever looked at seeing, is this something we should do? Right.
Right.
Have you actually read through things? Have you actually looked into things and do it? So vulnerability and learning is going to be kind of the guide that I want to push, right? And I feel like the best way to do that is to share people my vulnerabilities, right? You know, I feel like it's one thing to tell people to be vulnerable can be kind of disingenuous because a lot of times people tell people to be vulnerable and then they don't do it themselves. They tell them about how they need to fix things, right? I'm not going to do that, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to be 100% vulnerable with people, okay? And I'm going to try and it's going to be my way of dealing with it, right? It is for me to fix some of the things that I'm feeling not confident in. I'm going to be vulnerable with everybody else, throw it out there so I don't have to pretend like it doesn't bother me, right? I'm not going to be sitting here being like, I am doing amazing when maybe I'm not, right? I want everybody else to feel the same way with it, right? Because I want this to be able to be helpful for people to move forward. I have always felt at my best in a dealership when I'm learning things that I didn't know, right? And I always realized towards the end, as I was getting to my upper levels of my career, that was when I was doing the most movement to those levels, was when I really accepted things that I didn't know, looked into things that nobody had ever looked into before. And I'm talking GMs and above. Okay. They've just told me that this is what you do. Well, nobody's ever looked into it. I'm going to, and maybe it's a simple change to fix it. Maybe it's just reading, right?
Right.
Well, now I'm going into something I know nothing about. Okay. I used to know a good amount about what I did, and I don't know jack squat about what I'm doing now, right? But I took that jump. I took that jump for a better life for me and my family, and that's where we're going to transition to that future episode where we'll bring your friend in. And the reason being, the reason I left wasn't because I was going to make a ton more money. Okay. I wanted to enjoy life more, right?
Mhm.
And I knew it was going to be a struggle. Okay. Going into it, I did not think that this was going to be an easy transition. Okay. being as a general manager and above for the last 6 years, okay, I'm used to a good living, right? And I knew I was going to take a healthy drop, right? We're talking half or less over the first couple of years, right?
Yep.
And I'm dealing with that, right? I am dealing with that right now of not knowing things, right? I'm used to being the person that people come to when they have questions. Now I'm the guy that is asking all the questions. I'm okay with that, but it still feels bad, right? Like it doesn't feel good when you don't know something, when your customer, in my case, the dealers, are asking me something that I don't know. Now I find out for them just like I always would do with anything else. If I don't know, I am going to look into it and I am going to give you a genuine answer. But I'm having a hard time with that, right? That's going to be my personal thing. I am having a very hard time with people asking me things I couldn't even kind of guess the answer to, right? And it's like trying to drink through a water hose when you jump into something like this. I'm learning a lot. I've learned a lot probably over the last 2 months more than I did over the first 4 months because I'm really starting to get a grasp of things. But it's still a curve, right? And that
Mhm.
curve's been really difficult for me, right? But I can deal with that, right? That one's not really the big thing for me. It's tough. Okay. It's more of a pride thing than anything. Okay.
Sure.
It feels bad in the moment, but it's not the end of the world. Okay. The next thing is probably the second biggest thing, and I'm going to end on the hardest one. And this is where I'm going to be really vulnerable with the third piece. The second piece is knowing what to do with your time, your organization, okay, and how to hold yourself accountable, because that was the thing that always made me successful compared to everybody else. I was not smarter than anybody. I did not know more than everybody, okay? What I did differently than most people was I was extremely process driven. I knew what to do, when to do it, and I did it all the time, right? Now I come into something that I have no idea what to do on a daily basis. I don't know what to track. I don't know what I need to be doing when I have a general overall clue, right? I mean, I know the things I need to do. I need to talk to dealers. I need to, get in front of people. I need to cold call. I need to do all these things, right? But when do I do them? I knew that I needed to look at my financial statement first thing in the morning. I knew that I would then walk to my service department. I mean, I had
Okay.
things down in like 15-minute intervals. It may not have been written down, but I did the same thing every single day. Now I wake up, I have all this free time to go out and talk to people, and it's like you're overwhelmed with it, right? Like,
Yeah.
you're like, what do I do? Right. I can go out and talk to people. Okay. I'm going to be the first person to tell you this. And this is one thing that, those trainers always have when we've been in a dealership. Right. I always hated this. And I always said I wasn't going to be this person. And this is going to be some honesty for you guys. We've all had that trainer in sales that tells you exactly how to do it because they were the best salesperson ever, right? Every trainer you've ever talked to, trainer, I mean, in the sense that we're talking about trainer,
Yeah.
right? I was the best salesperson ever. I wasn't. Okay. I was a okay to good salesperson, right? I would say I was better than average. Okay. But I was not a great salesperson, right? It was an okay salesperson. And one of the biggest problems I had, and actually that was one of the things I talked with you about, and I took from Jonathan Dawson, was that introduction thing. That was always a problem for me as a salesperson, right? I
Mm.
didn't like that introduction phase, right?
Yeah.
I'm great with somebody once I get with them because I am meaningful. Okay. I want my relationship with you to be good. Okay. Not because I really, it's because I'm being selfish. I know that if I take good care of you, you're going to send every person to me and you're going to send all of your family and friends to me. Right. But it creates a meaningful relationship with my customers that's genuine, that they can tell because I really care. Right. So I was always great once I talked to the person, right? I was never great at getting started. And that's kind of one of my problems I'm having now, right? I am not a good cold call person. Okay. I walk in and I get to meet the guy that is the person before the person, right? I don't even get to the right person, right?
The
I get to the guy that
gatekeeper.
I used to have screen all of my stuff for me, right?
Right.
You never got to talk to me. I can
Mm,
guarantee you,
me neither.
I can count on one hand how many people have gotten to me in their career. It is not many. And this is where I told you earlier, karma's a SOB because I am dealing with it now, right? Because I'm trying to get past those gatekeepers so that I can actually talk to them and give them the idea of what I want to provide to them. Because I think once they get to know me and they get to know what I want to provide to them, that they'll actually see value, right?
Mm,
And that was always my issue when I wanted to talk to somebody. Everybody's wanting to sell me something, right?
yeah.
Very few people wanted to do something that was actually going to benefit me and my people, right? And so nobody got through to me because 90% were bad, right?
Yeah.
And what I need to try and figure out, and that's what I'm kind of doing this week, to be honest with you, is I'm forcing myself to do it. I'm partnering with one of our TPAs that are going to go out into the field with me, and we're just going to knock on doors, and I'm going to do it with somebody that I know is better than me at it, right? It doesn't take much because I'm not good at it. Okay. I think that once I'm in front of them, I'm better than most because it's a genuine thing and I can provide them value, but it's really, really, really hard for me. Okay. So that,
Yeah.
like I said, I'm going to be vulnerable, not great at it. Hopefully one day I am. I'm going to get with people on our team. I got to tell you, like, one of them, like, I love Cindy's approach, right? Cindy is great. She's got a lot of personality that's actually similar to mine in a lot of ways, but I miss that where she's got that, right? That I really love that about her, that she is just willing to just walk in, talk to anybody, and just start a conversation. And I don't have that, right? So I
Yeah.
want to try and gain that from them. Okay. The last portion of it is where I'm going to be the most vulnerable. Okay. That is the financial side. And I'm doing this for myself right now because I just need to get this off my chest. Okay. And we have a episode title here. Okay. And it's weird to have a title probably beforehand, but I need to think things through because, like I said, structure and organization's my thing. All right. And it's called Don't Just Complain About Things, Do Something About It. That wasn't for you, the person listening to this. Okay. This title wasn't for you. This title's for this guy. Okay. I am not going to be the person that is going to sit here and complain about things. I'm going to do something about it. Right. When I have something, we've all been in dealerships where everybody's like, oh, I'm not selling enough cars. I'm not making enough money. Right. And
Hmm.
they're like, go to their boss and they say, hey, I want a raise. Okay. We're in the car business. There is no raise. You give yourself one. Right. That's always,
Right.
that's always the conversation I've had with a million people. Okay.
Yeah.
You want a raise, go get one. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm
They're
not going to
everywhere.
be that guy when I've been that guy on the other side. Right. So what I got to do is try and figure my way around it. Right. But I also need to figure out myself in the short term. Okay. I've never been the person that lived beyond my means. Okay. I am not the greatest with the way I deal with my money. I like to spend it, right? But I don't have big obligations, right? I don't live in a house that is ungodly. I've lived in the same house that I had since I was a finance manager going on 15 years ago, right? I did this on a salary that was half of what I made. Okay. Haven't had a car payment in probably about a decade. Okay.
Yeah.
When you guys talked about what you and Adam started with, I got a nice 2020 Nissan Sentra sitting out here in the outside next to me because I was like, what gets me 30 some miles a gallon? And I can buy at the best price compared to what the value was when I was leaving. Okay. Is that what I'm used to driving? No, I'm used to driving loaded up F-150s, Tahoes, Navigators, all of these type of things. I haven't driven a car like this since I was probably about 2021. Okay. But it
Right.
doesn't bother me. I get in it, right? It was one of those
Yeah.
things that probably at first mentally I kind of had to get past it. But once I got in it, I was like, okay, I mean, it doesn't change anything who I am. I don't care, right? What's the same thing here? Okay. I had to get over my pride of this. Okay. And this was a hard step for me. And that's where I'm going to end this one, right? Is the dollars amount, right? Luckily, like I said, I kept my number low. Okay. So even though I'm making substantially less than half of what I was making before, and I'm going to get to that point, I'm not worried about that, right? We all know that I will get there. Okay. But surviving to that point's a different thing, right? And that's stress. Okay. And fear for me is a big thing, right? Fear
Mm.
is not a bad thing. Okay. I
No.
don't mean that to say it is a bad thing, but it can be overwhelming if you let it get past you. And I got to that point probably about 3 weeks ago. And this is where I'm at with it. I'm in a positive space right now. So don't take this as a negative. This is kind of what I want to share with people. If you're feeling the same way, get yourself out of it. And I did, right? And so what I did for myself is I looked at everything because I was struggling, right? Barely getting by, just making sure and having a hard time even having enough extra money to get to my next place, right? To get additional business. Well, what can I do about that? Right. Well, number one is I can do things like this and force myself to, because I'm going to look like an idiot if I don't go out there and do it now. Okay. Because I threw this out there to you guys. Okay. I got nothing. I got no excuses at this point if I don't go out there and do it. Baby, like, Bobby, you have on camera you saying you're going to do this. Okay. This isn't me telling you this is my goal. Okay. I am fully committed. right? So that's number one. Okay. The next thing for me is downtime has always been a bad thing, right? For me, I don't do well mentally when I am not working. Well, you guys see, I do stuff like this. So I like to keep myself busy. I like to do things, right? Well, I was sitting there and I was like just sitting on the couch and I was like, well, what could I do to earn a couple extra bucks in my downtime? And I was like sitting there, I was like, you know what? I take Ubers all the time. Okay. And this is the part where I'm really throwing it out there to you people. Okay. I signed up for Uber 4 days ago. Okay. And after work, I've been driving Uber. Right now, if I would have told you that I would do that or would tell anybody I did that, okay, probably any time in the last decade or so, I would have told you I wasn't brave enough to admit that to anybody. Okay. But you got to do what you got to do, right, to get there. But what I can tell you, the second I did it, the weight that got lifted off me, not because it made a difference financially, this isn't going to make a difference to me at all. It's going to help me get to a couple of things and make it a little bit easier. But what I liked is I like to have that time in the car to think, Paul. Like I have been I have been getting more stuff done after work when I'm doing this and I'm just delivering packages and stuff to people, right? I have been making really good thoughts on times where I would have just been sat and trapped in my head before, right? I would have been sitting at home just thinking about what the hell am I going to do, right? But now I'm not at all, right? And what I'm sitting there is I'm making plans, okay? What am I going to do this week? How am I going to attack it, right? And it made me feel in such a more positive place because I was doing something about it, okay? Was it making the massive impact on my financial outcome? No, not even kind of, right? This is the least amount of money I've made since I was probably 18 doing that, right? But it made me feel like I was more in control at that point in time, if that makes sense. And that's where that fear, right? It made me get where I felt control of that fear, right? So that's what I wanted to leave you guys with, right? Is I am making a commitment to myself to not fail because I don't know how to, right?
And it's a trickle down thing too. I mean, you say that it's not making a huge impact on you, but I would probably argue that with you because the fact that it's got you in a place where your mind can be quiet, right? And you don't feel like the walls are closing in on you. And you can actually think about what you need to do tomorrow, what you need to do next week. You can think about
It's
things that you
invaluable.
can do better for. It's invaluable because now you're actually, this is making of it. It just hasn't realized, right? You've
Right.
written the check, you just haven't cashed it yet. Right?
Exactly.
So all these things, I mean, it makes, and that's one thing that I would say for people that are looking at this because they go, yeah, it's easy to say, just get out and do it. You know what? It kind of is. You know,
It really
get out of your own way and start sowing some seeds, right? Then you can reap those later. But the problem is, and especially these days, when we're in this Amazon Prime society where we're like, I want everything right now.
right.
we
That's
think,
exactly
hey,
the thing.
it's like the person that goes and they do crunches for a week and they
And
look
I
down and
don't
they go,
have abs
oh,
now.
I'm not ripped. I'm just going to stop. This is all BS, right? It's none of this is a sprint. It's all a marathon, and just the car business in general, because what we do today echoes years down the road, because what we're going to find is that we treat a customer well today. We are servant leaders today. We're more eager to serve, less eager to sell, and just eager to help people. That will reap benefits. It might reap some benefits now, but it will reap benefits down the road that are almost unquantifiable. I have one of my finance people actually called me today, had a great success story, and he said, hey, you know what? He said, we have these people, this family, and he goes, they're kind of an odd family. It's like a family thing for them to come buy a car. He goes,
Right.
so like the husband has bought a car, the wife bought a car, one of their adult kids bought a car. He goes, they never buy anything from me ever. And I always give them the same dog and pony show because they're really nice people. I really like them. He
Doesn't
goes,
make
and
them
they
bad
brought
customers.
in aunts and uncles. And when they come in, there's always at least 4 people involved in this process. He goes, today was the first time, and it's probably the 5th or 6th transition I've done with these folks, where they bought things and the originator, kind of the patriarch of the whole thing, the dad, was the one that was advising them to do it. And he even said, you know what? We've spent so much time, and he explains it the same way and the same benefits and finds out why it's, he goes, you know what? This is probably
You're
something that
finally
you should
reaping
do. And
those
it's something
rewards.
that I'm going to do on my next one. And so, you know, it was one of those things where he said, you know, this guy beat me about the head and neck with a stick for years. And finally he comes in and he buys a bunch of stuff. And I said, that's the beauty of the process, right? I said, now the next thing that you need to do is let that sit for 3 days, then call that guy back and say, hey, you know what? I was thinking about you and some of the things that you said. It's actually not too late for you to buy a VSC or tire and wheel
No,
on your
right.
current vehicles. And let's have a conversation with them about it, right? But it's one of those things that you look at and you go, sometimes we look at the things that we do and we go, I feel like I am walking across broken glass. And I've been there, did it. Adam and I
Mhm.
both did it. And it was, you know, I mean, I sold so much stuff when we were starting this agency. It was great. You know, I mean, I had a Hellcat that had 1,200 horsepower. I had a Hawk. I had a boat, a big
Sure.
bass boat, 21 foot. I had 3 motorcycles, and I slowly got rid of all that stuff, mostly because it was like my vision of what this thing could be was more important than the stuff,
Well, and
you know,
you start to feel good about it as you do it. So that actually kind of reminds me. So like those are the people that really know me, the people that have worked with me. I have a thing with watches. I have a thing behind me, right?
Mhm.
I had probably about 50 watches, and I'm not talking about cheap ones, okay? You know, I had probably around 25 to 40 grand in watches, give or take, right? And slowly throughout time here, I've been getting rid of them. And honestly, I realized A, that I didn't need them, that it
Yeah,
was
you can
there.
only wear one. I mean,
Correct.
without looking
You
weird.
know, but it's that weight that got off you. Okay. And honestly, it's like I got more enjoyment as I was getting rid of them than I did owning them. I was realizing, which I never would have guessed in a million years. Right. But you know that you're putting it towards something is my point, is where I was going
Yeah.
with this and where that's where you were, right? I felt confident in where it was going to end with me, and it was the process of doing it and the commitment you really got by doing it, right?
Yeah.
That changed that mindset to where you were going with it, right? Because it's not that, like I said, it's not, is it going to make, you know, me sink or swim? No, it's not, right? But what it is going to do is going to push my commitment level in, right? And that's where I hope people take from this, right? Is that humility level number one, okay? Number two is, even if you're in a spot where you can't do something extra to make more money like I did, right? And a lot of people can't, right? I'm not saying to do that. That can just be in your own business, right? That can be the commitment to yourself to do better, whether you're an F&I person, you're a salesperson, you're a sales manager, whatever it is, right? It's the same thing, right? It's not that you're going to change it tomorrow, but what you need to
Uh-uh.
do is put in the solid processes, solid commitment to make that outcome. And I can tell you, if you commit to it, I've failed at things. Don't get me wrong. All right. I have. Okay. But I have never failed in the end, okay?
Yeah.
Because when I commit to something, I am doing it, okay? I don't half commit to anything, good or bad, okay? When I'm going to do something, I am going to do something at its fullest, okay? And I am going to commit to a situation like this, right? And that's the decision that I made for myself and my family. I'm not going to fail for my family. That was the thing that Danelle Delgado actually said that
Yeah.
also stuck with me there is, you know, we always think about our children and stuff. And sorry if anybody hears behind me. I have a teenage daughter that loves to listen to things when I tell her. And I said, hey, I'm going to be doing this. Please be quiet. And she's like, well, why are you doing it while I'm at home? I much would have rather have not to do that, because
Can't
anybody
hear it,
knows.
so it's not picking
Deal,
it up. So,
yeah, dealing with teenage daughters is like trying to herd feral cats.
yeah.
Okay, it's just, I'm like, okay, throw my hands up. God bless, right? But I'm committed to it, right? And that's what I hope everybody gets, right? And that's where I'll leave it. And Paul, you can sign us off. Is hopefully everybody feels confident enough to feel, excuse me, feel vulnerable, right? Open up to people, whether it's, you know, us. I'm here for anybody. I don't care if you do business with us or not, right? Reach out to me. Okay. I like talking to people, like helping people. Feel vulnerable. Acknowledge what is hard for you, right? Whether that's interpersonal. Like I said, I like notebooks. I write everything down. I journal thing.
Same.
I keep notes. Okay. When it's out of my head, I feel better about it. Okay. But feel vulnerable. Be okay with it. Embrace that vulnerability. Embrace that fear. Okay. But do something about it. Okay. Do something about it, big or small. Do something about it. And I can tell you from personal experience, not just now. Okay. This is a similar process I've done 100 times to this point. Okay. Just feels more momentous at this point in time because I feel like I'm at a turning point in my life.
Yeah.
Right. But that's what I want to say is to everybody is be comfortable feeling vulnerable, commit to something fully, and do something about it.
Yeah, and for the folks that are listening, you only fail when you stop trying, right? You only fail when you stop because we're all going to get knocked down, right? And it's it's the old Rocky adage, right? Do we hear it 1,000 times because it's a great line? It said it's not about how hard you can hit, it's about how hard you can get hit and get back up. And that's exactly what it's all about, right? It's about nothing's going to be perfect. Most days, things aren't going to go according to your grand plan, right? They just don't. Murphy's Law says that if something weird can happen, it's gonna. So, but the thing that you got to look at and you got to figure out, like in just talking about some of the things that you're talking about, I've had a lot of people. We had a kind of interesting and somewhat tough year in the automotive space, just profitability and some things that are happening and rates, specifically in the F&I space. Right, we came out of this crazy time in during the post COVID, but chip shortage, where customers were really kind of afraid to say no to anything because they were concerned that if they said no to anything, it could ruin their chances of buying this vehicle that they've been waiting for
Exactly.
6 months for, or that they've scoured across the country for. So, we had about a $350 lift in PVR across the country. And it's not because we all just got better.
Right.
It's just that customers stopped objecting so hard, and they allowed us to
Reap
play
that
on our
benefit.
song
Yeah.
sheet a little bit more. And now we're kind of seeing that go back the other way, right? Rates are starting to kind of normalize a little bit.
Getting
Customers are
tougher
getting
again.
back to grinding on cars, right? There's no, nobody selling things at sticker anymore. So it's harder to make money, and struggling with finances is hard, right? It's hard. It's hard when you're not making what you think that you should be making. But it's also, so then we got to look at the flip side of that, right? It's also hard to be structured. It's hard to be organized. It's hard to have a process and adhere to it. It's hard when you're sitting in the store and everybody's on the showroom laughing and talking about whatever show is the flavor of the week or the most recent football game or stuff like that. And you feel like you're struggling. The only thing that you should be doing is watching a video or going over, videoing yourself, doing your factory warranty presentation, doing something, some income producing activity, some IPA in order to make yourself better at your job. That's hard to do, right? But it's this level, what you got to do is you got to choose your hard, right? Do you want to suffer through the hard where money's tight and things are difficult and everything is the customer's fault because nobody's doing what they're supposed to be doing? Or do you want to go through the version of hard, which is where you're doing the things that you know that you should be doing, that make you better at your craft, that make you a better freaking human being? And trust me, folks, if you're a better human being and your customer can feel that,
Oh,
they will buy more stuff from
100%.
you all the time, every single time.
Yep.
So do those things to allow yourself to grow, right? Be vulnerable enough, be self-aware enough to go, hey, maybe I'm not doing the things that I could do. Like if you're listening to this and you're in the car, or you're at home, or wherever the case may be, if you're listening to it down the road and you haven't done something in the past week to get yourself some training, some coaching, some knowledge, shame on you. Shame on you,
It's
right?
very available,
Like
right? You
you
just got
said,
to go
it's
find
very
it.
available. And this is one of the few jobs in the world, whether you're selling cars or you're doing F&I, where you can just sign yourself up for a raise. You can just say, hey, I got a vacation coming up, or I want to buy a different house, or I want to buy a bass boat. You can sign yourself up for a raise. And all you got to do is just put in a little bit more effort. And I'll kind of sign off with this. I used to always laugh with my salespeople because I would always walk up to them and I'd be like, hey, what's the IPA that we got going? They knew that was income producing activity. What are we doing right now that's helping us sell a car? But I wasn't like that all the time. Sometimes I would go out and BS with them because I would tell them, I'd say, here, if you want to be really, really successful, if you're going to come in and work a 10-hour day, I'm just telling you, you're never going to see me breathing down your neck going, you're here for 10 hours, work for 10 hours.
Right.
Work half. if you come in and like real, and I'm talking about time when you're not with a customer. If you're with a customer, that doesn't count. But whatever hours that you have that are you're not with a customer, if you work half of those, and I mean work like your manager is standing over your shoulder with a whip, like you're, on a chain gang, making big rocks into little rocks, work like that. And what you'll find is that everything that you want will just come to you. You don't have to work for 8 hours or 10 hours or 12 hours. You got to work half of those. And you can be really, really, really successful. Probably be in the top 5% by doing that. Now, you want to be in the top 1%. You want to be, a Frank Graniti, work 8 out of 10 hours. Right. And I'm sure he has some time where he sits and he just talks about, you have to have some downtime, but you get to choose where you're going to end up. That's the beauty of that. I mean, that's why I love the car business, because it's the only industry where you get an opportunity to do that. And you have a unlimited customer base. Everybody got to you or got to work or got to the grocery store via a vehicle, right? And that's what we do is we provide vehicles. We all sell cars. You sell cars, Bobby. I sell cars.
We're car salespeople.
Sell cars. Regardless of what your title is, we sell cars. So, choose what your heart's going to be, in 2025. Are you just going to work a little bit harder, grind a little bit more, and, another 1%, 3%, 5% effort could yield you 20 or 30% more results. It's crazy. It's crazy. It gets exponentially bigger. So, let's, that's what we got to work on this year is just being better at what we do, being better at communicating with customers, being better at serving, and making sure that we're doing something every single day to grow. Because we talked a little bit about this on the last one. We'll talk about it in podcasts going forward. This business is changing and evolving at an almost geometric rate. I mean, it's happening so fast, it's crazy. So you have to be in that mindset of growth, because if you don't, what would normally have taken you 5 years to get left behind will take you 18 months now.
Oh, yeah.
And you'll just find that you'll go, man, I'm just not suited for this new way because now I'm so far behind the 8 ball. I feel like I can't catch up. So, now is the time to be looking to the future. Now is the time to be trying different things. Now is the time to be creating your processes. I mean, January 1, we're not that busy right now, right? This is the
you
time
still got time.
A little bit slower.
It's not ideal to be doing it at this point, but you don't feel bad. There's plenty of them out there. We talked with some today.
Right. Yep. We start at the beginning, right?
Yep.
So that's would be my message to folks today.
Awesome. Well, I hope everybody enjoyed today's episode. One thing I want to ask out there is if we have anybody that's listening to this, I want to have your friend on to talk with us about what we talked about earlier. Mm-hmm. But what I'd also like to do is I'd like to talk to some people that are really applicating this and using ways to do things differently from a management perspective, whether that be scheduling differently, whether that's, handling your salespeople differently. A lot of it that I personally have issue with at this point in time is the corporate feel you get with everything, where everything's so sterile and you're a number, right? And that's like what I really was struggling with at the end is, oh, you can't do this, you can't say this, you can't say fit exactly into this hole. And it's
right.
That's stressful on people, right? I'm a big personality. I understand it. A lot of people don't like it, and I get it. Okay. I don't enjoy my own personality all the time, but it is mine. Okay. So but it's hard when you have some people that, give it the raw, right? Really give it the raw. And you tell them that what they're doing isn't okay. Right. And it's very impersonal. And it's the same way we're talking about dealing with customers. And I just got to think there's a better way. Do I know what it is? I don't know. I want to take this journey with you guys. Right. So this is where I would like to hear from some people. If your store is doing something for you or your people, right? Maybe you're a general sales manager and, even if you don't feel great, but you think that your store is doing something great for your salespeople, let's share it with people. Right. Because when people get good ideas, they don't often share them with people. And I wish we would do that more. Like, I don't want to share everything with anybody. We can all win. Okay. We can all win. Right. And if you've got something good out there, please share it with us, right? Please reach out to us because we'd love to have you on. I don't care what you could be a salesperson, right? If you're a salesperson, you could be a detailer. Like I said, I started out. If you're watching this and you're a detailer and your store takes good care of you, reach out to me. Okay. I want people on that we can find out ways to help stores treat their people better, to make them earn more money, and to make them feel more comfortable, because it's not always about the money. I've watched people leave stores for places that paid them less just because they were treated better and enjoyed their life way more once they did so.
Happens all the time.
So hopefully you guys did that. Hopefully today's episode was good for you. I threw Paul a curveball. He probably did not know I was going to unload like that because I did not put that in the notes. But hopefully that he gets the same result that I do with it, and that was why I did it. Right? I did that because, like I said, that's how I needed to do it. Right? So hopefully you guys can get some inspiration from it. Like I said, I don't know everything, but I want to help you. Right? I want to help you go through the same things that I do. So that's going to be the thought with it. As always, we're going to launch this on Friday on all of the different podcast platforms. I shared it out today because I was having an issue with feeds on Friday. So our first episode came out today, but that should all be fixed, and these will come out every Friday from now on. But you will always be able to watch these live events as they happen. And then if you want to get them on any of the LinkedIn and Facebook, they'll be there as well. But always look for us, like, subscribe, and share on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and on YouTube. I had to think about that there for a second. And then if you want to reach out to me or Paul, you can always either, give us an email. Our emails are always on all of our websites. But the best way to reach out to us is on our socials. I'm Bobby Hobbs on all of mine. You're Paul Brown on all of yours. And you can always look at us with Ascent Dealer Services on Facebook or LinkedIn. So I hope everybody has a great week and a great night, because it's late. It's 9:18 here on the East Coast. I know Paul has that fake time zone that's called the Central Time.
We do. I got
that East Coast bias. I don't recognize any other time zone other than my own. Okay. This is East Coast time. Right. So hope everybody has a great night and a great week. Have fun, everybody. We'll talk to you guys later.
See ya.